Hi, I'm Cheryl Leach. In this problem, we're asked to find the cost function when we're given the marginal cost and we're also told that the fixed cost is $750. Well, this particular problem is worded as an application problem. However, what is the mathematical process that we need to solve the problem? What we're really being asked to do is to solve a differential equation with an initial condition. Well, the first part makes sense. I'm given the derivative. I'd like to find the cost function. I can do that through integration. But what about that initial condition? Was I really given an initial condition? Well, the information that tells me about the fixed cost is going to give me that initial condition. Why? Well, what is fixed cost? It's the cost incurred in producing 0 units. For instance, you're still going to have to pay rent for your building. You may have to pay electricity. Those costs do not rely on how many units are sold. So I can turn this verbiage into saying that the cost when I produce 0 units is 750. So now I have my initial condition. So let's go ahead and solve the differential equation. I know that my cost is the integral of dc dx dx. And my marginal cost is 1 over 20 times the square root of x plus 4. So now it's time to integrate. But I don't really have a simple rule for integrating a square root of x in the denominator. So I'm going to use a little algebra to rewrite this. The first thing I'm going to remember is that the square root of x can be written as x to the 1/2 power. So I have 1 over 20 times x to the 1/2 power plus 4 dx. And then I'm also going to remember some properties of exponents, and that is that I can take x to the 1/2, pull it into the numerator, and write it as x to the minus 1/2. So this leaves me with 1/20 times x to the minus 1/2 plus 4 dx. Now I'm able to use my basic integration rules. So I notice that in my first term, I have a constant multiple of 1/20, and I can use my simple power rule to integrate x to the minus 1/2. Remember, you add 1 to the exponent and divide by the same number. So that will be x to the 1/2 all over 1/2. That takes care of the integral of my first term. Now I need to integrate 4 dx, which is just 4x. Now we always have a constant of integration at this point, and usually we use the letter c to represent that constant of integration. I think I'm going to choose a different letter though this time because my problem is talking about cost, and c represents the cost. So I don't want to confuse it with my constant of integration. So let's just use a k instead. Now I need to do a little simplifying. Instead of dividing by 1/2, let's multiply by 2. And that will give me 1/10 x to the 1/2 plus 4x plus k. And if you prefer, you can write that x to the 1/2 back in radical notation as the square root of x all over 10 plus 4x plus k. Now we're ready to get that particular solution. What is the value of k? We use our initial condition. So I know that when I plug 0 in to my cost, I'll have the square root of 0 all over 10 plus 4 times 0 plus k, and the result has to be 750. Well, the square root of 0 is 0, so this first term is a 0. 4 times 0 is also 0, and I'm left with just a k on the left-hand side. So that constant of integration was 750. So my final cost function is the square root of x all over 10 plus 4x plus 750. I hope this helps. Thanks.